San Antonio! Welcome to All Things San Antonio podcast with your hosts and favorite realtors, Brad Burns, Ken Carter.
And we are here with a very special guest. You might have heard him, us mention him maybe once or 100 times in the previous episodes. We have Andrew Weissman of Mr. Juicy fame, the #1 hamburger in San Antonio. Best value, all of that, but we'll get into that. Like we say, I'm a transplant. He's a native. Tell us your origin story. Like, what is it brought you to San Antonio, and kind of give us your history.
Well, I'm from here.
Awesome.
So
okay.
This is my town, man.
Okay.
Born and
Where'd you go to
raised-
high school?
Churchill.
All right.
I'm glad that you know to ask that question.
That's
important.
always
Even
the
though you're a
question.
transplant.
Yeah.
But I got here right before my junior year of high school. So I went to Judson for my junior and senior year, and at that time, early '90s, I graduated in '91. Like the Churchill, the Clark, all that stuff. Like Clark literally dropped or sent our baseball team a bouquet of black roses before a game.
Sounds about right. We got tired of winning to Churchill when I was there. It was an everyday occurrence. So.
Yeah.
No, but
Of course.
I remember the big rivalries. That was a lot of fun back then.
Yeah.
I'm a couple years older than you are, but man, those were great days, great times.
It was fun.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
So born and raised in San Antonio. Went away, left after high school to go to university. After university, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I graduated with a degree in radio, television, film, and journalism. So I happened to have a friend in mutual with Bob Rivard, who at the time was the editor of the Express News. Mm-hmm. And somehow my friend convinced him to speak with me for a couple of moments because I had no idea what I was going to do with this degree. He was kind enough to, and I had always loved Mexico, had traveled there quite a bit growing up. And so my dream was to potentially go to Mexico and maybe do stories that were pertinent to Texas.
Okay.
Moreover, like the Rio Grande area. And so I spoke to Bob about it, and he said, hey, look, I can help you in the sense that I know someone at the news bureau in Polanco. And so he gave me a name. All I had was a name and a number. And this is kind of how crazy I was as a kid. I moved down there with nothing more than that. And I called this woman up, and she said, hey, come over and talk to us. So I did. And she said, look, you can utilize the news bureau kind of as a home base. And if you'd like to do stories, you can pay my cameramen to go out with you. And if you find stories of interest, and they'll help you edit them and things of that nature, which they did. They were fabulous, unbelievable. I found myself more often than not going out and doing stories, but they had a kitchenette in the news bureau there. And I would cook for everybody. And I really found joy in doing that, shopping at the market, the local mercados there, and bringing food back and preparing it. Well, fast forward a couple of weeks, George Lewis, who at the time was an extremely well-known NBC News correspondent, he came down to do some coverage of I think it was a presidential race, and they, of course, use the bureau there as their home base. And the woman who had hired me asked me if I would cook that night for everybody, the camera people, everybody, and I did. And after the meal, Mr. Lewis told me, he said, hey, look, man, I travel the world with my camera crew. This is one of the best meals we've ever had. This was amazing.
And how old are you?
How old am I now?
No, then.
Oh, back then I was 22.
20. Wow.
So quite a while ago.
Do you remember what the meal was?
You know, people ask me that quite a bit. And in fact, I was interviewed by the New York Times. They had to verify all this stuff, by the way. I don't really remember what the meal was. That's the craziest part about it.
I can imagine, like, you're going to the Mercado, whatever, and getting the fresh ingredients and whatever you could have made. And,
right.
Yeah.
So we kind of sat and talked, as everybody did that night. Wine was free-flowing. And he had told me, he said, hey, look, I know how glorious or glamorous it looks what I do for a living. He said, this is the worst job in the world. He said, I think if I recall him saying he was on his third marriage, never got home, never got any quality time spent at home. He said, you might want to consider doing this as a living. And I was thinking to myself, man, the the people that edited my stuff and seen what I had done in front of a camera probably told this guy, hey, do this guy a favor, man. Do him a solid and tell him he might want to think about doing something else.
That's funny.
Which I never was comfortable doing that anyways, and standing in front of a camera. I just never liked it. So I thought about it, and once again, within a couple of weeks, I was back here in San Antonio trying to figure out what's cooking all about. I didn't know anything about it. What do I do to get into the field? If I want to learn how to do this, where do I go to school for it?
Yeah.
I didn't even know at the time. So
So you had a little bit of a natural talent, obviously. Did you get that from like your mom or grandmother or grandparents?
Yeah, so food has always been a big deal in my family. But the thing is, and I wouldn't say I was a latchkey kid, but my brother and I always, when we came home from school, we cooked for ourselves and our friends. And I had a working mother and a working father, so we did spend time at home alone, as did a lot of kids back then. If we weren't outside riding our bikes or kicking around a ball, we were eating something, right? And so I kind of decided I liked it as far back as that. And when I came back to San Antonio from Mexico, I just had to figure out a route that I could take, a path that would be logical so I could monetize this at some point.
Yeah.
And asking around, I had a girlfriend at the time who came from a well-to-do family and knew everything that I didn't know about eating in good restaurants and how chefs become chefs. And she kind of tutored me and said, hey, look, I actually have a girlfriend who's at a school called the Culinary Institute of the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. And maybe you could talk to her. And so I gave her a call, and she told me what it was like, and it sounded unbelievable. Place where you just go to cook, and there's a bunch of other students, like-minded students, and in a beautiful part of the country. I was like, count me in. So it's kind of what started my whole career.
From Mexico to New York.
Yeah, and that transpired in the course of maybe a month, because when I called the CIA, they sent me, I'll never forget, they sent me a VHS tape to see what the school was all about. And after watching it, I was bought in. I called them back and I said, I really want to enroll. How do I get in for the fall? And this was springtime. And they said, well, look, you already have a college degree. A lot of these high school and college kids that get out of school want to have their summers to themselves and then come in the fall. If you start now, we'll give you an additional $2,500, which at the time, to me, $2,500 was like
That was a lot of money.
crazy money.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm in. When do I have to come? And they said, you need to be here next week. So I really didn't have many material goods or anything, so I was like, okay, I'll be there. So I figured out a way to make some money to afford a plane ticket, and I took the train from New York City to Hyde Park, and I was picked up at the train station by my girlfriend's girlfriend, and she literally just dropped me off on campus, and I had no idea what to do. Just kind of had to find my way.
Whole culture shock of New York.
Yeah.
Good old boy from San Antonio.
Yeah.
Had you done much traveling before that?
Up to that point,
other than like down south?
I had done a lot in Mexico. I had gone to my sister's wedding in Florence, Italy. She's married in Florence, and got to travel a little bit at that point. But that was about it. I had never really experienced big city like Hyde Park isn't big. It's a small, sleepy community outside of New York, of course. But just the whole thought of this new endeavor that I knew nothing about, it was pretty exciting.
Yeah. So after that, where did you get in with a restaurant, or did you start a restaurant right away, or?
No, so it's kind of a fortuitous story. Once again, my girlfriend enters a picture. When you go to the CIA, you have to go on extern. It's part of the curriculum. So I didn't know what I was going to do for externship. Well, she was going to graduate school in Connecticut. And she said, hey, I'll show you around to some of the restaurants here in Connecticut. Come and check them out. And I fell in love with one. It was called the Homestead Inn. And the restaurant there was LaGrange at the Homestead Inn. And it was in a really, really upscale part of Connecticut, like the most upscale part. It was a neighborhood in Greenwich, Connecticut, and a really beautiful place. And I interviewed with the French chef there, Jacques Thibault, who was a pretty well-known chef at the time, and he gave me an opportunity, you know. And I excelled in his kitchen, and I excelled at school. So I hope I'm not being too long-winded.
No,
No, that's just interesting because it all ties in. Because like I'll, as soon as you start saying that, I'm thinking, oh, a wet sauce with Dijon and shallots. It sounds kind of French.
I'm glad you picked up on that. So Jacques gave me an opportunity, and I worked in his kitchen and did well. He was part of what was called the French Mafia. There was a gentleman who owned a high-end meat company in New York City in the meatpacking district, and he was like an agent for chefs. And all the biggest chefs you know that are French or European were brought over by Mark Sarrazin. With the knowledge that I'm going to bring you to the U.S. and I'm going to place you in a job, a well-paying job, but you need to buy from my meat company. And so I didn't know any of this at the time, but going to school and working for Jacques on the weekends after my externship. One day I was in class. It was one of my final classes before graduation. I got called to the president's office, and I was like, man, what the heck? So I went up to the president's office, and there were 4 other culinary students there. We were all sitting in chairs in a line in the president's office, and a gentleman walks in, and it was Mark Sarrazin, and he sat down, and I didn't know who this guy was. And he asked the first guy sitting next to me, and I'll never forget this guy's name. His name was Grover. He said, Grover, who pays for your school? And he said, I do. And he said, okay. And then he goes to the next guy, and he said, who pays for your school? And he said, my parents do. And he said, you can leave. And 2 out of the 5 students had their parents pay for school, so they were asked to leave. He took the rest of us, before we even talked about anything, said, come with me to the bursar's office. So we walk into the bursar's office, and he said, tell me your social security number. And there's somebody sitting behind the computer there, and they punch in our numbers, and they turned the screen to him, and he said, your account is now 0. You don't owe any more money to this school. It turns out that he also sat on the board at the CIA, which was amazing. He zeroed our balances.
Wow.
Which, anybody that knows, even back then, culinary school is expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It's only gotten more expensive. So we went back into the president's office, and he said, where do you want to go? Where do you want to work when you get out of school? And I said, I want to go to Europe. And he said, done. He went down the line just like that, right? And I'll never forget, Grover said, I want to work for Daniel Boulud in New York City. And he said, done. Just went down the row. And we went back to class, and I was like, man, did that really just happen? So that weekend I went and I go and tell Jacques. I said, Jacques, you're not going to believe what happened, man. And he's like, you dumbass. I was a big part of that. So he knew all about it, and he said, this is what's going to happen. You're going to work like a crazy animal for me for the next couple of months, and then you're going to go to Europe, and you're going to be what's called a stagiaire. You're going to work, and when that chef has had enough of you, he's going to send you to the next chef, and you kind of get work that way. And that's what I did.
It's what a community.
It was crazy.
That as soon as you get that, but if you get there, like, and you go through the CIA, and like at that time, it's like that was the path. And that's the hardest thing. Is like I talk all the time. Like I feel like I got hoodwinked a little bit. I was a military kid, so like everything was just different. Like I didn't understand business at the time, and like you just had kids and went to college or whatever, and went to work for someone, and like to have at 22 years old, it's like just free to like take a path and and then choose that. It's like it's crazy. It's unbelievable.
That's really what I want for my children, because
same.
You come across these unexpected like treasures, right? That you wouldn't otherwise. My oldest is about to go off to college in the fall, and I don't want to really. It's not that I don't want to give him direction, but I don't want to guide them in any way that may cause unintended results, right? Like I could say, hey, you go to school, you come back and you work for the family business, you automatically walk into a decent salary.
But that's those guys like who paid for your college or for your CIA. My parents did. Well, you go away.
Right. That's right.
It's that kind of that same mentality, right?
Yeah. It's tough to kind of freeform it. You know what I mean? You want to be completely at least I do. I want to micromanage my kids. But I know that I got to pull back.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I got to let them find their way and be there as the kind of the guardrails.
Yeah, it's funny. His are so much younger than mine. It's funny because.
Yeah, so I try to let them do their. I mean, mine are 6, 8, and 1. I mean, they're so young.
You
still.
gotta let them do their own thing.
I realized that every thought that the only one that's doing what I thought that they would do, not even trying to guide them. The only one that's doing that is the one that's an engineer. It's like because like he was just math and this everything was he was building rockets in high school.
Yeah.
Like he was so down that path. Like it wasn't guided or anything. It was like I remember when he was like in 6th grade. It was like a Tuesday, and he's watching TV doing homework, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Homework." I said, "You don't watch TV doing homework." And he's like, "It's due Friday." And I'm like, "Yeah, just keep doing your homework." It's like, what are you watching?
I think my kids are a little different. If it's due Friday, they're doing it. If it's due Friday at 3.
That was this one.
Friday morning,
okay.
yeah.
1 out of 6 is like it's like
You have 6 children.
It's a mergers and acquisitions.
Oh, okay. I got you.
We had 2.
They
He
still
had 2.
count.
I had 2. My sons are the 2 that I acquired. Are like I've had them. I acquired them when they were 5 and 3, and it's like
Oh yeah.
My son's going to make me a grandfather in July, and I can't.
Wow,
even,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's exciting.
You look at these kids, man. They're like I heard long time ago, kids are like a pane of glass. That's clean. And no matter what you do, good or bad, your fingerprints on that pane of glass, so you got to really be cognizant of every kind of move. And man, I screw up a lot, but I try to do more good than bad.
The 4 oldest were definitely the learning ground. I feel like we have been a little bit better, less like my dad and like in his dad, because like it was like this way or that way.
Right,
like,
right.
There was no bending, and it's like there was also no reason. And it was like what was the reason we had these arbitrary rules? So their mom helped me get away from some of that. So hopefully they don't have too much trauma.
Oh, that's nice. I'm sure they don't.
So how did you go from? You were in Italy, France?
No, I was in France.
France? Okay.
Yeah.
How did you go from France to Mr. Juicy today?
Ay.
That's a long
I know that's another story
That's a
itself.
long one. But kind of the abbreviated story of that is when I was in France, Chef Jacques, the one in Connecticut, called me and said, hey, there's a restaurant. It's Le Cirque. And at the time, Le Cirque, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but at the time it was the most famous restaurant in New York City, arguably the country, and potentially one of the most famous in the world. They had shut down to break the back of the union, Ciro, the owner, and nobody knew what they were going to do. And this is where everybody from Kissinger to, you name it, every star you can imagine showed up either for lunch or dinner there. So people were excited to find out that the Sultan of Brunei bought the palace in New York City, and they were going to reopen in the palace. Well, Chef Jacques called me because he had worked there when he first came to the U.S. and said, man, you need to fly back here and apply for a job there. And so I was like, okay, good, I'll do it. So I did it. I went through a series of interviews and was hired. Worked at Le Cirque on the opening crew, which was something otherworldly. It had an open kitchen. Every celebrity you can imagine, from the Clintons to Chuck Mangione to Bill Cosby to, Martha Stewart. Everybody came in to talk to us to see what we were doing. Hey, can I watch what you're doing? Or things like that. And then Ciro's kids, he invited all the old school, old money stars and celebrities. His children invited all the West Coast stars and young musicians and whatnot. So we saw everybody there. It's pretty interesting. Anyways, after a while, I went to work at a couple of other places in New York City, came home to visit San Antonio, visit my family, And on the way to the airport, my sister said, hey, let me show you a spot. It would be a really cool little restaurant. It was downtown. And I said, yeah, sure. So right when I saw it, I was like, something came over me. I'm like, man, I need to open up something there. And I knew at that moment that I wasn't going to be in New York for very much longer. So I went back, pretty much said my goodbyes, rounded up all my stuff, and came back and opened up a restaurant in that very spot.
Before that, you were like you were headed to the airport to go to New York for a couple years.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah,
just like that, it changed.
Yeah, and that's where it all started. I had a restaurant that I put everything into. It was called Le Rev, and it became a really well-known restaurant and in its own right. And we worked like crazy for 10 years there trying to make it something. And at one point, it was when Gourmet Magazine was still a really big publication. Everybody got it in the mail. It named us the number 6 best restaurant in the U.S. In front of all these crazy restaurants that I talked about in New York and California. And that blew it up. That like blew the doors off of it. We were having people come from Saudi Arabia to dine with us, from Europe, from New York. They'd fly in just to eat, spend the weekend, and go back home. And that changed everything.
That's great.
Yeah, we went on.
Surely like a Michelin 3-star kind of like rating if you're like going there just.
Oh yeah. That was so big. I can't even imagine. Today, I don't even know if Michelin has the power to do what that did for us.
Yeah.
Because also in quick succession, that happened, and then at the time there was a really well-known writer for the New York Times that wanted to do a story on me and my restaurant. So he flew down. His name was Johnny Apple. And he flew down and did a big one-page, like, so when you open the New York Times, which everybody back then used to read, not online, but physical paper, when you got to the food section, it was the whole page. And that went around the world. You know, that was massive. So that kind of was a double whammy.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that set us up.
Old school guerrilla, like the marketing is so different nowadays.
Oh,
it's
man.
like the impact. People don't really realize how much of an impact like those newspapers, like literally like you go into a hotel and like it's in the front, it's in front of your door, you had the newspaper.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to get in front of people.
Oh, man, it was one of the only ways, right? That and magazines and that's everybody read them.
Yeah, a restaurant's not doing commercials all around the world.
Yeah.
Where now you can do a video, TikTok video, and it goes around the world.
That's right.
I
guess it was our version of TikTok.
What year was this?
That was in 97. When Johnny came, that was probably around 2001.
Okay.
So really before the advent of any of this stuff.
Yeah. Because the CIA came here like soon at like right after that, or
that was the CIA came here in like
I thought it was like 2003 or
3 or 04 something like that. Yeah.
Which is, it's funny to me to see. So my kid's mom, she went to school at UT, lived at like downtown, like and coming to San Antonio to get a job teaching and stuff like that. She was never impressed. She really was not a fan of San Antonio. And like in the 20-something years that I've known her, watching San Antonio transform into what it is today with the CIA, and you got the Pearl downtown and like the Hotel Emma and all that stuff. It's really amazing, this food scene that has transformed here.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah,
and that's the Rev is like has to be kind of like part of that catalyst that started that.
One of the pioneers, huh?
Yeah, so, I mean, there were guys that predated me, of course, like Bruce Auden at Biga. But even back then, Bruce, myself, Mark Bliss from Bliss, and Damien Wattell that owns Bistro 9, not at the time he didn't. He owned a different restaurant back then, but we were like pretty much the only game in town back then. It was incredible. I mean, like they asked us to do the opening of Whole Foods at the Quarry. It was the 4 of us cooking at 4 different stations, and it was a different time back then. It's before the Pearl existed,
Yeah.
I mean, I was the first restaurateur at the Pearl, so I remember those days. It way predated all that stuff. So just an interesting time. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the way San Antonio's exploded year over year has just been crazy to watch.
So I'm curious because we talk about in real estate how like we believe in abundance and stuff like that. So we share. You saw what's going on out here. There's people sharing their knowledge and things like that. And you feel like, in my mind, right or wrong, I always felt like restaurants in other places, New York City, were so cutthroat and competitive. In San Antonio, everything seems to where everybody like always lifts each other up and is always helping each other. Is that kind of foundation from like what you experienced at CI? Because it's kind of seemed like my mindset is changing on that.
Yeah, so New York is cutthroat, but you do see restaurateurs and chefs helping restaurateurs and chefs there. There's no doubt about it. In fact, I remember when there were nights where our executive chef in restaurants in New York was out sick or whatever on vacation, and there would be another guy that would come and fill in from another restaurant just to call the tickets and whatnot, which I always thought was amazing. It wasn't always like that in San Antonio. It definitely is. That kind of rose has bloomed over the last 10 years. You've seen restaurants supporting one another. You see it a lot on social media, and it's an amazing thing. Yeah. And I think it saved a lot of restaurants that were teetering on the precipice of possibly closing down. But also I think the community at large also is a big player in that. They've also helped restaurants survive here when...
we love to eat in San Antonio.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. The problem with San Antonio is we have a lot of restaurants and we just don't have the equivalent amount of discretionary income across the board.
Yeah.
You go to a place like New York or LA or Miami where people have unending, deep pockets. Those restaurants are going to be full. We're cutting a pie that's finite, and it has to be shared amongst a lot of different restaurants in town. So you got to try to rise above the white noise somehow.
So you've definitely, with Mr. Juicy, let's talk a little bit about that, because that's kind of like our favorite thing in San Antonio.
Well, man, I appreciate that.
Even from when you first opened there on Hildebrand, and just watch when before it had everything, it was just burgers when it first opened. Like, what made you decide, I'm going to go burgers? Like, it's such for someone who's traveled the world cooking and doing all these things and cooking for the Sultan of Brunei, and now it's like we're doing burgers and fries.
Yeah, so I got lucky. I've gotten lucky a lot of times in my career. So I don't know. It was just I had a feeling that I could just feel it, that people weren't spending the same way they had on fine dining. And so I had to get to Brad's question, how did I get to burgers? I'm going to back up just for a sec. What happened was after I opened Le Rev, I had a little restaurant next to it called the Sandbar. It was a high-end seafood place. And Kit Goldsberry, the founder of the Pearl, founder and owner, came to me and said, hey, I want you to open up a restaurant at this thing I'm going to do. And I was like, And the more he talked to me, the more I thought, you know what? I'm kind of at the end of the road with this fine dining thing. Let me try something different. I'll move to the Pearl, which I did. I moved the seafood concept over there. So I had the Sandbar there, but I said, I want to do Italian. So the building that is now what's Ladino, it's a So that used to be Il Sogno.
Really good food.
Yeah. So they built that building for me. That was a non-existing building at the time, and Kit built that, and I ended up doing an Italian restaurant there. And fast forward, I was coming to the end of, I had a really great deal worked out with Kit at the time because he was asking me to come there. Mm-hmm. But I knew that after 10 years, they were going to hammer me for a crazy rent. And that's exactly what happened. And so I decided to close those places and do something completely different, which I skipped over to Almas Park, and I opened up a place called Moshe's Golden Falafel, which was Middle Eastern food. We rolled out a pita to order. It would blow up. We'd cut it open and stick a bunch of salads and falafel in there.
My brother-in-law worked there for a little bit with, his name's Izzy.
That's right. That's
and,
original Mr. Juicy there.
Yeah.
Worked with another guy that worked there when I was at McDonald's, Michael Johnson.
Oh, yeah. You know that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's eons ago.
Yeah. And I remember, I never ate there, but I remember him talking about it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, when I saw you posting that, I was like, I didn't know he owned that, too.
Yeah.
That's cool. Small
Yeah,
world.
It was a crazy time. We had a fervent following, but not enough people knew what that kind of food was all about. Nowadays, it'd be completely different. So,
see, and that's the thing about San Antonio is the amount of diversity in food that we have from like different cultures, like whether it's Indian or like having falafels and Middle Eastern and stuff, like the Egyptian with pasta. Like, we have just every kind of food. Like,
sometimes you just got to search it out, but it's here.
It's definitely, it is. The only thing that I'm not sure if we have an Ethiopia. Like,
we do. I just ate there 2 weeks ago. There's a place called Amen Cafe where Sangria on the Berg used to be.
Okay.
You know where that is? Right there on Fredericksburg?
Sangria on the Berg's already gone?
Yeah, it's been gone for,
I went there a couple times. It was good. The problem is like where it's at.
It's tough.
For me, it's like, that's what's the problem with restaurants is like, it really gets in your traffic pattern.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you're not in your traffic pattern because everybody's so busy with school and work and this and that and everything, but yeah.
And so that's one to try. It's a real good one.
I love the bread, the spongy like.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah,
it's fermented.
We'll get you there. You can't use your hand. You got to use your hand.
I'll meet you guys there.
That'd be awesome.
It's really good and it's spotless inside there. Like this woman who owns it just keeps it tip top.
That's hard to do at a restaurant.
Yeah, especially, it's something that has to be taken care of on a daily basis and not just for, hey, we're going to clean for an hour. It's consistently throughout the day. It's a really tough deal. And you can see restaurants that let it go even for a day or two. You're like, oh, man.
It starts building up,
Real fast.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I was trying to figure out, okay, I love doing Moshe's. I love this kind of food, and people are very excited about it, but it's got to be worth the squeeze for me. All my restaurants have been profitable, pretty much measured by any metric, and I was like, man, I got to figure out a way. This one was profitable, but not enough to make it worthwhile to be away from my family.
Yeah.
So we were, of all places, we were on a family vacation in Colombia, and we came out of the hotel, and I saw a line down the road, and I was like, what is that line for? And we walked over there, and it was a burger place. And I was like, man, people, even in Colombia, in South America, people are crazy about burgers. And I told my wife that night at the hotel, she thought I was nuts. I said, I'm going to turn Moshe's into a burger spot. I think it would be a really cool burger spot. And she's like, are you kidding? And so on that trip, I created the name and the logo, got back.
Controversial name.
Yeah, man, to say the least. I think we're past that, though.
I know.
But got back, and once again, and you might start to realize a common theme with me is whether it was culinary school or going to Mexico or whatever, I make a decision and I'm like in.
Yeah.
So within a month, I had that converted from a Middle Eastern shop into a burger shop.
Yeah. Parking was tough, but
oh man, was it?
God, it's interesting because you went from fine dining, like not overpriced, but very like generously priced food.
Oh yeah.
And to literally probably the cheapest burger in town. That's you're doing everything like from the buns to the everything handmade, home in house.
We do about 90 some odd % in-house product. We try to do whatever we can. We've realized there's a reason why places like McDonald's and Wendy's aren't able to do what we do at scale because it's so intensive. And you have to teach people how to do all those things, even when you're do it the same way that you showed them, even when you're not there.
Yeah, that's a hard thing.
That's a really hard thing, especially when you've got, if you're doing 50 people a day, which is what I used to do at La Rev, that's one thing. But when you're doing 500 people at a location a day and everybody wants the same quality, that's where things get really tough and can kind of go off the rails. So we've learned our lesson on a couple of things, but we still continue to cook everything in-house a la minute, which means at the moment you order it, we never sandbag. Like, I'll never say, hey, cook 30 patties and have them ready to go, no matter how busy we are, no matter how frustrated that makes our guests. We will only do it when you order it. And so we'll get calls like, hey, I want to call in an order for 10 people. I need this. And we always apologize and say, hey, it doesn't help your case at all to call it in because we're not going to cook it until you are here paying at the register. So that's also why we're on no platforms, because
people will bitch.
They will, and the drivers will.
Yeah.
They would come and pick it up, and they'd be like, "Where's the food?" Because you'll go into a lot of places and they have a rack dedicated to bags that they can just pick up. We would never do that.
You lose so much quality doing that.
100%. And this kind of food, by the way, doesn't last to begin with.
Yeah.
Even when you
got to eat it because it's a juicy burger on bread. And you don't want to take it's even like taking it from the place to get home. It's like you want to eat it like it's
100%.
Like, and go. But
I always tell my kids I see them stopping on the way in from school and bringing it home. And even with my kids, this is how crazy I am. I'm like, guys, why don't you eat it there? Don't get I want people to experience the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't like taking food home from the drive-thru.
I don't either.
It's gross.
And really, that came from. Before real estate, I was a general manager at McDonald's. Was there 16 to 11 years, however long that is.
Wow.
But even McDonald's, the fries are good for 7 minutes.
That's it.
7 minutes.
7 minutes, and then you got to throw them away. And it's more than a 7-minute drive
I saw a video.
home.
Those French fries, a month later, still look the same though. But
you don't have the same quality. They don't have the crisp.
It loses the
everything,
the crispness on the outside, and you don't want people to judge you on that. If I could, I would have a place where there's no to go. You can't take it to go. You got to stay. I mean, there were pizzerias that I've seen in the past that won't allow their pizzas to go just because of that.
Yeah.
So it's a very fleeting kind of the moment.
Well, that's I don't know if you ever get on any kind of apps like Dave Portnoy from Barstool. One bite.
Yep.
And anytime someone gives him the pizza and they don't close the box, he goes, "You didn't close the box. You cheat." He goes, as soon as they close the box, the steam changes the flop and everything for him. I don't know if he likes.
Well, you'll notice if you get our bags, they're never closed. They're never folded over. They're never gathered at the top. I do that for the exact same reason because fried foods steam and they become really disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how those little things that people aren't realizing how many things are happening that are so intentional, like leaving the bag opening, to make sure that the experience is they're. And I go back to the price, it's cheaper than going to your fast food chains.
I think so.
It really is.
Yeah. And the thing is we're not putting any of this crazy additives or added sugars or MSGs or things like that. It's food that I'm happy for my kids to eat. Not every day, but I always say.
Burgers are for every. I love.
I do too, but I gotta. Man, at my age, it's sick. So, the thing that I always tell people is we're making the best of the worst food. So, if you're gonna eat fast food, you cannot do better than us. This is certified Angus meat with salt and pepper. You're not getting pink slime or whatever McDonald's got busted for.
Yeah.
And our fries are cut Idaho potatoes. It's not stuff that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
So we're proud of that.
Have y'all switched to beef tallow yet for the...
So we've always cooked our patties in beef tallow.
Okay.
We have not, we don't do it in our fryers, and there's a couple of reasons. One, once again, as I mentioned, I feed this stuff to my family. So I want to make sure that, it's not unhealthy. We do use seed oils to fry in. I have not seen a conclusive report that those cause inflammation. What I've seen is that there are foods related to frying.
That's the thing. There's so many things that, in these studies, that they pick out one thing
and they run with it.
Yeah, they look at they also eat this way all the time. And they had two Supreme pizzas at the same time.
That's exactly right. It's all extremes, right?
It's all extremes. I just think it's funny because it's such a I don't want to say it's a bandwagon kind of thing, but
it is.
It's as soon as people hit on something, they don't even understand the nuances of it, and it's but it says, but it's this, but yeah.
The thing is another thing.
I'm curious how many restaurants actually are starting to switch, because it's a very expensive switch.
It's crazy expensive.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But what I find funny is what is it? Buffalo Wild Wings says they fry everything in beef tallow, but it's deodorized beef tallow, which is, if you look that up after our conversation here today, it's actually the worst thing for you.
It's processed beef tallow?
Yeah, it's super processed. It's crazy, crazy processed. And if you
You
look,
say deodorized, it makes me think they fried other stuff in it and everything.
I don't know what they did to it.
They were frying some fish in it, and they had to get that fish smell out of it.
That's right. It's extremely ultra pasteurized or processed rather processed. So, but if you look that up, you'll see how bad that stuff is for you. And they're claiming that it's a health benefit.
I don't want Buffalo Wild Wings to get mad at me, but like it's like the worst of the wing places. It really is. Like I've never had a good experience.
Nor have I. Yeah.
I've only gone like maybe a handful of times. It's like I just refuse.
It's basically the McDonald's of wings.
It's worse.
Yeah.
It's more the Jack in the Box of wings.
Yeah.
If we're ranking them, please don't sue us. We have no revenue.
So how did you end up at the location?
So
where Mr. Juice is at now?
First the Hildebrand,
because
you started
yeah.
in the where the Jack in the Box used to be.
Yeah.
A lot of cleaning get involved there before you got.
Yeah, you're man, you have no idea.
They let them build up bills.
50 years. If pipes were arteries, those would be like the guy that's on life support because they're closed, right? But and that's actually why they were asked to leave. Their franchise, whatever it is, whatever they pay into, was taken away from them because they ran all of their franchises like that, like really poorly. And at the time, that one, talk about being on life support, when I came upon it, it may be getting 8 or 10 customers a day.
Wow.
It was that bad. But what had happened was COVID had just hit. And I was sick and tired of the parking, not knowing what COVID would bring. I was sick and tired of the parking at McCullough, so I was looking for something else anyways. Well, all of a sudden I saw a skid sign out in front of the Jack in the Box saying for lease. And I was like, what? So immediately I called. I said, I want it.
What a location.
Yeah, I was like, I'll take it. And it turned out to be fortuitous because COVID, during its height, no one wanted to go inside anywhere, and that had a drive-through.
Yeah.
So that kept us, wrapped around the building. People had nothing else to do, so they would sit in line,
Oh, we were in line.
Yeah. Man, huge props to y'all for getting through COVID. Like, I could not imagine working in a kitchen with a mask on.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
It was funny. The only guy not wearing a mask in that kitchen was me. I couldn't do it. It drove me nuts. But...
From a guy who had never wore a mask either, he says that.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't do it.
I hate breathing in my hot air. Like, I can't cover my head when I sleep because I need that fresh air.
Well, that's the thing. When I was saying, like, it makes me cough. Like, but anyways.
Yeah, so it was a crazy period of time for sure.
For restaurants, and I wonder if like that kind of was a bigger switch for like the restaurant community. Is like we've got to help each other out because like we really are brothers in arms and like the camaraderie. We got to help each other because we have a number of people coming in here and you hear about it all the time. It's like, hey, I needed some coffee and called this person up and they sent a couple pounds of coffee over or whatever. It's like
I just think at its nucleus, the restaurant, the people that work in the restaurant business want to help. They're there to serve, right? Yeah. So, and I think sometimes a lot of clients that get off on a bad foot aren't giving people the opportunity to do what they do, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because you see how giving, like, the first place that schools or nonprofits go to for money or donations are always restaurants.
They're always helping the community.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you, like, your menu has really evolved.
Yeah.
From the very, because it was real simple, burgers, then you added chicken, I think, after that, then the shakes, the baked goods, everything. Like, how's that process, was that always the intention, or is the vision just kind of developing as you go?
So there's a couple of things there. One, at heart, I'm a chef, and I need excitement. You know, I can't do the same thing every day. That gets me crazy. I'd like to create. So that's one thing. That said, I do want to start stripping it back because what I'd like to do eventually is open up. I've realized the power of a good chicken fried steak. And so I'd like to eventually open up a place where I can do chicken fried steak, biscuits, gravy, bone-in chicken, stuff like that. So
we just had Bobby's kitchen.
Oh, yeah?
Greg over here. He just came in and like chicken fried. It's I don't know. It's like there's a switch back to like comfort.
Yes, for sure.
Like these comfort foods and stuff.
And especially in San Antonio, you can never go wrong with that kind of food,
No.
right? So I would like to start stripping back the SKUs as soon as I can find a location to do what I'm talking about and get back to just doing burgers and possibly chicken. I don't want to do really anything else. I want to refocus our energy on improving the burger that we're selling.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. How do you make it to where it doesn't become a Cheesecake Factory menu?
Right.
Because that's the hard part. Yeah.
That is a hard part, where less is more. But what happened was we started selling chicken and immediately we just saw sales just shoot up. And it became like 35% of our sales.
Your chicken sandwich is like this.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know about being from San Antonio is give people a lot of food, man, and they'll come back.
Dude, you could give like a couple extra sets of buns with the chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
And just make 3
Well, there's a couple of people that come in and they'll say, hey, let us have 1 chicken sandwich and 2 extra toasted buns.
Yeah, it's a big sandwich. It's good stuff. Yeah.
So,
How do y'all keep the prices so reasonable?
I try to base it all. I have fought raising prices. I've towed the line on that forever.
Yeah.
And
all your other costs have to be going up.
Every one of them.
Every single one.
Every one of them. And so I base it on the fact that we're going to do the volume. And I always feel like when everybody else is, not everybody, but the vast majority of people are downsizing what they're selling and raising prices, I know that people, maybe they don't realize it immediately, but in their subconscious, they're like, man, this was smaller and it costs us more. Maybe we don't go there as often. Whereas I prefer to not make as much money and give people more than what they expect and have them come back once a week or twice a week. We got a guy that comes every single day without fail. Like, this guy comes every day. If he doesn't show up one day, we're going to be like, we need to call this guy's mom, find out where he is.
We need a health check.
Yeah, we need a health
We
check.
had those people at McDonald's too. You could count on them being there every day. We had one lady at one of the stores that she was like 104.
Wow.
And went there every day until she died.
And
That's
like
insane.
I said, we become
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
patterns.
Yeah, so and trying to navigate those patterns in the restaurant industry is a fool's errand, man. It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, trying to figure out, when are we going to be busy? When are we going to be slow? When are we going to be this or that? There's always a reason for something, but you can never figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Like, where is everybody tonight? We thought we were going to be crazy busy.
I helped open up the Rudy's Barbecue on Westover Hills across from SeaWorld.
Yeah, for sure.
And like a few months into it, when we're still trying to figure out, what's the right par for everything, the Big Thunder store. Everybody leaves the park. Everybody comes to Rudy's Barbecue, and you've got 500 people like just trying to not that many, but like like hundreds of people trying to show up, and it's like, man, we got 3 briskets on the thing. What are you gonna do? It's like you can't control for everything, and it's like
You can't, and there are so many variables. Guests don't understand it. You don't want them to have to understand it, but sometimes you want them to have a little grace, because I know of all those people, there were probably some really mad people that they didn't get fed,
The maddest person, if you say that, I was talking to somebody when the floods hit in '98.
Oh, yeah.
I was back at the Leon Springs one, and knee-high in water, and people yelling because we weren't cutting brisket for them.
Oh, yeah.
We're flooding.
Yeah.
We're closing. Like, I want my 3 pounds of brisket. It's like, well, I'm here, you're here, can you cut it real quick? And it's like, oh my gosh. Like,
We had a situation similar to that. That's when I owned La Rev, and I remember those floods, and we had to call and cancel reservations. And there were 2 different parties that were like, you're canceling our reservation? I'm like, as I'm looking out our window, I saw a log, because we were on the Riverwalk, on a real secluded part of the Riverwalk. The river had swelled so big it flew over it was flowing over the bridge.
wow.
And I saw a log. It was like a tree just floating by, and this lady's yelling at me for canceling her reservation. I'm like, people are nuts, man.
Yeah, people want their food.
They want their food.
People get so
San
upset.
Antonians are hungry.
Yeah.
I will say, I think one of my favorite employees of yours is a young kid that works at the, is it Hildebrand? Hildebrand location?
The Hildebrand in San Pedro.
Young kid that works at night.
Carlos.
I think so. He's so good. Like,
Shout out to Carlos.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to tell him,
Yeah,
man.
he's...
All right, maybe I won't fire him.
Nah, I
Hey, I've had a lot of employees. Like I owned a pizzeria for a little bit and dry cleaners. And by God, the most frustrating employees that you want to fire every single day are your best.
Oh, yeah.
They make everything right. They press the clothes right. They did everything right.
Like Carlos, you could tell he's not the fastest, but he cares. Like you can just feel that.
Yeah, he's
that's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Did you guys ever go to Northwest Military?
We went there the other day. We ate in-house.
We go there when we have a bigger party to go with us, but if it's just like my wife and the kids, we'll go to Hildebrand because it's a little bit closer. But if like the whole family's going, we'll go to Northwest Military.
When we pick up at Hildebrand, it's just over to like Alamo Heights area, so it's not too far.
Is that where you guys
justify it now?
That's where my kids, their mom live and everything. So I'll pick it up and we go over there.
Oh, okay.
And our office is over there.
Oh, okay. Good deal. Deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I live like more southeast.
So is that where you're going to pitch your next place in that area? Because it could use a better burger place a little closer.
Where's that?
Alamo Heights area. We do have Tycoon Flats that just moved in, but that's a tough location too.
I've looked on Austin Highway. I've looked everywhere in San Antonio, and you guys know about the real estate situation. It's one of my passions is driving around looking for locations, and I love it. There are so many areas of San Antonio that we would like to be in.
Brooks City Base is good.
Brooks City Base is unbelievable. There's a Taco Cabana over on Southwest Military that apparently might become available, so I'm going to look at that.
Right across from like Bud Jones and kind of that area.
Yeah, that area. Yeah. It's a pretty active area.
It is.
So we'll see about that. And I've looked in Thousand Oaks. I've looked in out by SeaWorld. But for one reason or another, I feel like, man, this isn't the exact right location. I'm trying to find
It's so important.
Because I imagine like there's that ideal size of what your seating capacity needs to be and stuff like that. Because I mean that's it's when we do investments like you at the very beginning it's when you buy, right?
That's right, 100%.
And so for like a restaurant, that first thing that you're buying is your lease payment.
Yep.
It's like where's that going to be and what's that nut so I can make over that.
And the thing is so like from the outside looking in, the Hildebrand location looks good. It's what I would consider maybe a C+ location. It does have a good car count. It's problematic in the sense that it's hard to access the parking lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's only got 26 parking spots. It doesn't really have a sufficient. The drive-through is not to code as far as how many cars you can stack in the drive-through, and there's no seating in there.
Yeah,
it's an old building. No matter what we do to it, it's going to still be an old building. So this newer one, the Northwest Military, is like a world apart. Like it's everything that one's not.
Because it used to be a Whataburger, huh?
It used to be a Whataburger,
yeah.
And they kept it up. They have a crew that even though it was shuttered, that was part of their rotation to make sure that place was still kept up. But I found one, man. It broke my heart. I found a place in New Braunfels. It was a Zaxby's, and they had just closed, and this place was a gem. It was a gem, and I went and looked at it 2 weeks ago, and I said, I'm ready to sign, get me a lease. And it turned out the owner, who has a portfolio of these Zaxby's that he's trying to sell, decided he wanted to sell it. He had a bunch of offers on it, but it was turnkey, brand new equipment, everything ready to go.
Do you prefer to lease your spaces, or do you prefer to buy them?
It's going to be on a case-by-case. I think there will be some instances where I want to buy them, but up to this point, we haven't had an opportunity.
Yeah.
People hold on to restaurants. They're good. They're good real estate to own.
I have one for sale in Floresville, if you know anybody.
Yeah.
It's an old steakhouse.
It's not a drive-through?
Nah.
Yeah.
It's like right downtown, smack dab. I wouldn't do owner finance. Maybe it's a chicken fried steak place.
I like it. It's working.
All the equipment and everything.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What was it?
Trail Rider Steakhouse.
Oh, nice.
She shut down like during COVID. Said she couldn't get people to work. She said she made like $1 million a year in there.
Yeah.
Do you ever have plans to franchise?
I don't. I mean, things may change.
It's really hard when you do everything in-house.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is get this up to about 8 to 10 units and then see where I'm at, make a decision.
Yeah.
Do we want to pass this down to another generation so they can continue to grow it? Do we want to sell it? Do we want to franchise it? I've had offers to buy it. I had offers to buy it when it was one unit. but I don't think it's where I want it to be yet. I want this place, just the graphics, even our packaging is horrible. I'm trying to find somebody that can do like alien green bags for us. So when you're carrying a bag, people are like, that dude is carrying
Mr. Juicy.
Mr. Juicy. I don't want a white bag. It's all these things. Fast food is a juggernaut to me. I've been doing fine dining for 28 years. And so all this is new to me. It's fun learning,
Yeah, it's always fun.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, as old as we are, we still feel like we're 20.
Oh, man.
26, 27-year-old guy just trying to
Yeah.
I still got 20-something years to
Your kids will remind you that you're not. But
Oh, yeah. My daughter, she gave me a workout to do that I just started. And I'm having to move everything down. She's like, today I was supposed to do the Stairmaster on level 8 for 20 minutes. I was like, I did it at 5, hon. I was like, what are you doing? I got on 8. I was like, man, I'm not this fast.
That's awesome.
running.
That's awesome. But yeah, I'm like, I hop out of bed in the morning ready to go, and I'm like, I got crazy energy.
Yeah.
So we'll see where this takes us,
Well, awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, man, I couldn't be more honored to be here.
We have a few questions that we're not going to ask you what's your favorite burger because we know what it is.
Okay.
And the right answer is Mr. Juicy.
And if you said something else, we'd tell you you're wrong just
Well,
like we
I
tell everybody
appreciate
else.
that.
So we always ask what breakfast taco. Do you have a go-to for breakfast taco?
I do, of course. I go to the original on Fredericksburg. I don't know if y'all are familiar with it.
The original Mexican where they had the donut shop.
Yeah.
And everything? Oh, for sure.
So the donuts play a big part of that. But if you go there, you have to get the tortilla toasted. So if you get a bean and cheese, they put the bean and the cheese in there, they fold it over, and they press it on the flat
Almost like
top.
a quesadilla. That's my. I do that too. That's my trick.
Dude,
Man.
I just got something.
It's so good.
Native
It's so
orange
good.
to a transplant.
Yeah.
Y'all have some native secrets that I'm
Yeah.
learning here.
So are they related to the original Mexican restaurant down on the Riverwalk?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
No. And what's neat about that place is, and I will say this, I'll fight anybody on this one, they've got the best bear claws. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say bear claw. Apple fritters, best apple fritters, and best cinnamon crumb donuts.
When you said bear claw in my head,
Yeah, that's what
I
I
pictured an
thought,
apple
yeah.
fritter.
I think that's what I was doing too.
I love an apple fritter.
Their apple fritters are insane.
That's that German influence down
yeah.
there.
And you can get 2 sizes, small or large.
So since we're not going to ask you burgers, that we're going to put pizza on another comfort food.
Oh man.
Do you have a pizza place?
God, I can't say it out loud because I don't want to. There's so many good pizzas working out there now. But my brother, I will say this. I'm going to take the cheap way.
Political
route.
way. We're going political on it.
Yeah.
PC.
My brother-in-law makes a pretty mean pizza. He's been working at it he doesn't do that for a living, but in his home he makes a killer pizza.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thanks for coming
Gents,
on.
Thank y'all.
Y'all, if you haven't
Appreciate
tried it yet, go to Mr. Juicy. It's the best. It really is. Price per buck. Everything about it is it's top notch. Like and subscribe.
Catch y'all on the next episode.
Appreciate it.